It's not that deep. We're just close, she said while prioritizing me only when it was convenient. I matched that energy and stepped back quietly. Weeks later, she couldn't understand why I stopped showing up like before and started setting boundaries. It's not that deep. We're just close. She said it laughing, like it was obvious, like I was being ridiculous for even needing a conversation about it. I smiled back, didn't say anything, but something in the way she said it, that casual, breezy dismissal, landed differently than she intended. Because the thing is, I hadn't asked anything dramatic. I hadn't made demands. I hadn't told her how I felt or drawn some invisible line. All I'd done was mention, quietly, that it felt like she only came around when nothing else was going on. That was it. And her response was to laugh. It's not that deep. We're just close. I replayed that line more times than I should have. Not because it was cruel, it wasn't. Not because it made me angry, it didn't. But because I realized, in that moment, that she genuinely believed it. She believed that closeness could exist without consistency. That someone could matter to her without her needing to show up for them. And the worst part? For a long time, I believed her. I didn't know it then, but that afternoon was the last time I would let a dismissal sit in my chest without doing something about it. Something was already shifting underneath everything. Quietly, the way water erodes stone. Not violently, not dramatically, just steadily. And by the time she noticed, there would be nothing left to explain. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I was 26. She was 24. We'd been in each other's lives for about 2 years, met through mutual friends, fell into each other's orbit the way people do when the timing is right and neither of you is paying close enough attention to question it. That's really all the context that matters. Her name was Cassie. We were never together, not officially, but we were something. That's the thing nobody tells you about somethings. They don't come with rules. They don't come with agreements. They just come with feelings you can't quite name and a dynamic you keep hoping will eventually define itself. Cassie was the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. Sharp sense of humor. Quick with a compliment. The sort of person who made you feel, in the moment, like you were the only one in the room. And when she turned that attention on you, it was intoxicating. The problem was the word moment. Because the attention was real, but it was also temporary. It came in waves, warm and present and overwhelming. And then it receded. And you were left standing on the shore wondering if you'd imagine the tide. I didn't see it clearly at first. Honestly, I didn't want to. The first time I noticed the pattern, I filed it away as coincidence. We'd had plans. A Thursday evening, nothing big, just grabbing food somewhere, the way we'd done dozens of times. She canceled an hour before. Something came up with her other friends. She texted, "Sorry, rain check?" You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. That was the problem. I rescheduled without making it a thing. We rescheduled for the following week. She canceled again. This time, it was a work thing. The time after that, she was tired. The time after that, her plans with someone else ran long, and she just didn't have the energy to come out after. Every reason was reasonable on its own. But stacked together, they started to form a shape. And the shape was this. I was the person Cassie made plans with when her better options fell through. Not the first call. The backup. The comfortable option she kept in rotation because I was low maintenance and always available and never made her feel bad for the cancellations. I still didn't say anything. I kept showing up. Kept being easy. Kept being the soft place she could land when the rest of her week hadn't gone the way she wanted. Here's what I want you to understand, because it matters. I wasn't a pushover. I wasn't naive. I'd had enough relationships, friendships, situationships, the whole spectrum, to recognize when I was being taken for granted. I recognized it. I just didn't act on it. Because acting on it would have required me to accept that Cassie, funny, warm, disarming Cassie, was doing this consciously or not, and that the closeness she kept referencing was mostly something I was maintaining alone. That was a hard thing to sit with. So I didn't sit with it. I kept moving. There was one night, around 4 months in, where I got a clear look at the architecture of the whole thing. We were at a birthday party for a mutual friend, a guy named Owen who'd thrown a genuinely good gathering at his apartment. I'd arrived early. Cassie had said she was coming. By the time she showed up, the room had shifted. The energy was different, louder, and she walked in and immediately folded herself into a different group. I watched her from across the room. She caught my eye once, smiled, gave me this little nod like, "See you in a minute." That minute took 2 hours. She spent the whole night working the room, laughing loudly with people I barely knew, and I stood around doing the same, making my own conversations, having a genuinely decent time. But something about it stuck. Not jealousy, not insecurity, just the quiet recognition that I had come to this party in some corner of my mind because she said she was going to be there. And she was there, just not for me. We ended up talking for maybe 30 minutes at the end of the night. She was warm, present, funny. She hugged me on the way out and said, "We need a proper catch-up, just us." I agreed. I meant it. She meant it too, in the moment. But a proper catch-up never happened. Not that week. Not the next. And I noticed, for the first time, that I was always the one following up. Always the one suggesting the plans. Always the one making sure the thread of the friendship didn't drop. She'd respond. She'd be enthusiastic. But she never initiated. Not once. I asked a friend about it once. A guy I'd known since university, someone who's read on people I trusted. His name was Fletcher, and he had this way of cutting through things without making you feel like an idiot for not seeing them yourself. I laid it out for him over drinks one night. Just the facts. The cancellations. The way she'd show up, fully present, when she had nothing else going on. The way I was always the one keeping things alive. Fletcher listened. Then he said, without any real hesitation, "She likes having you around. She just doesn't prioritize you." I sat with that. Those can both be true at once, he added. And yeah, they could. That was exactly the problem. Cassie genuinely liked me. I had no doubt about that. But liking someone and prioritizing someone are different muscles. And she was only exercising one of them. Then came the conversation. The one I mentioned at the beginning. It was a Sunday afternoon, a few weeks after the party. We were sitting outside at a coffee place, both of us with cups we'd been nursing for too long. The conversation had been easy. It always was, when it happened. That was the thing about Cassie. When she was present, she was fully present. You forgot, in those moments, all the times she wasn't. At some point, I mentioned it. Casually. Not an accusation. Not a confrontation. Just a nudge. "I feel like you only make time for this when everything else falls through. Like I'm the backup plan." I said it lightly. No heat in it. She blinked. Then she laughed. Not meanly, just reflexively, and said, "It's not that deep. We're just close." Like closeness was a static thing. Like you could be close to someone without effort. Like the label protected the relationship from the need to maintain it. I smiled. Let it go. Changed the subject. But something settled inside me quietly. Not anger. Not hurt. Just clarity. She'd given me her real answer. Not intentionally, but clearly. The next few weeks, I watched myself more carefully than I watched her. I noticed how much effort I was putting in. The follow-up texts. The check-ins. The way I kept the plans alive. The way I reorganized my schedule when she finally did have a free evening. The way I never mentioned the 12 times before that she'd canceled. I was giving her a level of consideration that she wasn't matching. And the wildest part? She didn't even know. Because I'd never let her see the imbalance. I'd made it so easy for her that she had no idea it cost me anything. That was on me. Partly. But here's what I decided, quietly, over those 2 weeks. I wasn't going to confront it. I wasn't going to give a speech. I wasn't going to explain what she was doing wrong or hand her a list of grievances. I was just going to stop. Stop initiating. Stop following up. Stop making myself available on her timetable. Stop showing up like a fixed star she could navigate by whenever she needed. I was going to match her energy. Exactly. Nothing more. Nothing less. The first week, she didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't say anything. She sent a meme on Tuesday. I responded. Short, warm, nothing that invited a long thread. She asked what I was up to on Thursday. I told her, honestly, that I was busy, which I was. For the first time in a while, I actually was. Not manufacturing distance, just not manufacturing availability. I let the week go without suggesting anything. The second week, she reached out more. Nothing dramatic. Just a little more frequently than usual. A voice note on Monday. A text on Wednesday asking if I'd seen some show she was watching. A photo of something that reminded her of an inside joke between us. I responded to all of it. Just not the way I would have before. Before, her reaching out would have sent me into motion. I'd have built on it. Suggested something. Kept the momentum going. This time, I responded and let the thread sit. No suggestions. No plans. Just presence. By the third week, she said something. Not in a big way. She texted, "Feel like I haven't seen you in forever. You okay?" And here's the thing. That text would have, 2 months ago, made me immediately clear my schedule. I'd have said, "Yeah, let's fix that," and handed her my whole weekend. Instead, I texted back, "Yeah, I'm good. Just been in my own lane lately." She replied with a same and a heart emoji. And that was it. For another few days. I want to be honest about something. This wasn't easy. There's a version of this story where I tell you I executed this quietly and cleanly without feeling anything. That's not true. There were moments where I genuinely missed her. Not the dynamic, not the uncertainty of it, but her. Her specifically. The way she told a story. The way she could make something mundane sound hilarious. The way she remembered small things you'd said weeks ago and brought them back out of nowhere. Those things were real. And losing access to them, even partially, had a cost. But the thing I kept coming back to was this. I'd been paying a different kind of cost for a long time. The cost of pretending the imbalance wasn't there. The cost of swallowing the cancellations without acknowledgement. The cost of being easy when easy had quietly become invisible. That cost had been accumulating. This one was smaller. A month in, she called. Actually called. Not a text, not a voice note. A proper call on a Saturday morning. I picked up. Hey, what are you doing today? Some errands in the morning, probably meeting Fletcher later. What? I wanted to see if you wanted to hang out. Today? Yeah. I paused. Not for effect. Just genuinely processing. Because it was the first time, in 2 years, that she called to ask if I was free with no prior context. No failed plans with someone else. No slow Saturday with nothing to do. She just reached out. I've got the afternoon free, I told her. Cool. Come over. I'll make food. We spent about 3 hours at her place. It was a good afternoon. Genuinely. But something had shifted, and I think she felt it. I was warm. I was engaged. But I wasn't the version of me she was used to. The one who bent around her schedule. The one who made himself seamlessly available. I was just present. On my own terms. Without performance. Before I left, she said something. We were standing in her kitchen. She was cleaning up, and I was pulling on my jacket. You've been different lately. I looked at her. Different how? She thought about it. I don't know. More distant. Like you're here, but not fully here. I thought about it's not that deep. We're just close. I thought about every canceled plan. Every time I'd followed up. Every time she'd been warm and present and wonderful, and then just gone again, back into her life, available on her own timetable. I've just been focusing on my own stuff, I said. Not cold. Not loaded. Just honest. She looked at me for a second. Are you good? Yeah, I'm good. She seemed like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. And I left. Here's where it gets strange. Or not strange. Predictable, actually. But predictable in a way that still stings a little when you watch it happen. Over the next couple of weeks, Cassie started showing up differently. More texts. More initiating. She suggested plans and actually followed through, twice. She reached out on a random Tuesday night just to talk. No occasion, just because. She was giving me more of herself than she had in 2 years. And I received it all genuinely. I wasn't holding a grudge. I wasn't punishing her. When she showed up, I showed up back. I just stopped doing the extra mile. The buffer. The soft catches. I stopped absorbing the imbalance so she'd never have to see it. One evening, we were sitting on her balcony, drinks in hand, and she said it. I feel like things are different between us. Different how? I asked. She was quiet for a moment. Like before, you were always, I don't know. You just always seemed happy to hear from me. Or to make plans. And now it feels like I have to work for it. I looked at her. You do have to work for it a little. She blinked. What does that mean? I didn't say it harshly. I said it the way you'd tell someone the sky is blue. Just a fact. It means I stopped being as available as I was. Not because I'm upset. Just because I realized I was the only one keeping this thing alive. And that wasn't fair to either of us. She was quiet. I kept going. When I mentioned it a couple of months ago, that I felt like a backup plan, you laughed it off. Said it wasn't that deep. And maybe it wasn't, to you. But it was to me. And I realized I'd made it too easy for you to not think about it. She set her glass down. I didn't realize. I know. I wasn't trying to. I know that too. Silence. She looked out at the street below. So what does this mean? It means I still want to be close to you, I told her. I just need it to be mutual. Another silence. Long enough that I wondered if I'd miscalculated. Long enough that I rehearsed, internally, how I'd handle her being defensive. But she wasn't defensive. She looked at me and said, quietly, that's fair. Here's the part of the story that most people don't tell. Because it's not cinematic. There was no big apology. No tearful confession. No moment where she spelled out everything she'd done wrong, and I graciously forgave her. It was smaller than that. And more real. She just adjusted. Slowly, imperfectly. There were still weeks where she went quiet. Still times where she canceled. But the ratio changed. And more importantly, I stopped absorbing the imbalance silently. When something fell off, I said so. Not dramatically, just directly. Hey, this is the third time this month. What's going on? And she'd either explain, or she'd catch herself, or we'd have a small conversation about it. The dynamic became something different. More honest. More equal. Less effortless. But effortless had always been a lie. It had only felt effortless because I was doing all the work behind the scenes. I think about something Fletcher said to me weeks before all of this, when I was still in the middle of figuring out what I was even feeling. I told him I didn't want to lose the friendship. And he'd looked at me with that flat, steady look he gets when he's about to say something you need to hear but don't want to. You're not afraid of losing it, he said. You're afraid of what it means about you if you speak up. I'd pushed back at the time. But he was right. It wasn't about losing her. It was about the discomfort of being seen as demanding, as high maintenance, as someone who needed things from people. I'd spent so long making myself frictionless, easy, low need, always available, that the idea of asking for basic reciprocity felt like an imposition. Like I was the problem. Like wanting to be prioritized, even a little, was somehow too much. And Cassie's "it's not that deep" had slipped right into that fear. Had landed on it perfectly. Because she was right. It wasn't deep in terms of drama, but it was deep in terms of what it meant about how she valued the space I occupied. There was one afternoon, about a month after the balcony conversation, where something small happened that I think about more than anything else from that whole stretch of time. We were at a coffee place, a different one from the one where she'd laughed it off. She'd made the plans. She'd suggested the time. She'd shown up early. And at some point in the middle of talking about nothing important, she stopped mid-sentence, looked at me, and said, "I'm sorry, by the way." Just like that. Out of nowhere. For what? I asked. For not showing up the way you showed up. For making it one-sided and not noticing. Or noticing and not caring enough to change it. She paused. I didn't realize how much you were carrying until you stopped. I didn't know what to do with that, honestly. It wasn't everything. It didn't undo 2 years of being the one who cared more. But it was real. And real counted. Thank you, I told her. And I meant it. What I took from all of it wasn't a lesson about Cassie specifically. She was doing what most people do when someone lets them. She was taking what was offered without questioning the cost to the person offering it. We all do that sometimes. The lesson was about me. About the habit I'd built of presenting myself as easy and unbothered and always available because I thought that was the way to be liked, to be kept, to be valued. I thought the less I needed, the safer I was. But what I'd actually done was train the people around me to expect nothing from themselves in return. I'd made myself frictionless. And frictionless things don't require care. They just exist. In the background. Ready whenever needed. The shift wasn't dramatic. It didn't happen in a single conversation or a single decision. It happened the way real change usually happens. Quietly, gradually, and mostly invisible until it's already done. I started saying no to things that didn't work for me. Not as a strategy. Just because they genuinely didn't work for me. I stopped following up twice when once was enough. I stopped keeping the thread alive when the other person showed no signs of wanting to pick it up. I stopped making space in my schedule, reflexively, anytime someone I cared about became available. I let some threads go entirely. Not angrily. Just quietly. If someone consistently showed up only when it was convenient for them, I let them have that. And I let the part of me that used to chase it rest. Some people noticed. A couple asked about it. One person, someone I'd been close to for years, a woman named Deirdre who I'd grown apart from without ever formally acknowledging it, called me out on it directly. "You've gotten colder," she said. I thought about it. "I've gotten more accurate," I told her. She didn't like that answer. But it was the honest one. I wasn't cold. I was just no longer warm in places that had never been warmed in return. That's not coldness. That's calibration. Cassie and I are still in each other's lives. It's different. Better, I think. In the ways that matter. More honest. More balanced. There are still moments where I can see the old dynamic trying to reassert itself, where she goes quiet for 2 weeks and then reaches out expecting me to pick up right where we left off. I do pick up, but not all the way. There's a distance I hold now, not out of resentment, out of self-respect, out of the knowledge that the version of me who would have closed that gap in a second, without hesitation, without asking anything in return, that guy was generous. But he was also teaching people how to treat him. And he wasn't teaching them well. I'm not angry at Cassie. I never really was. You can't be angry at someone for taking what you freely offered. The frustration, when I felt it, was always pointed inward, at the part of me that conflated availability with value. That thought being needed was the same as being wanted. That believed making things easy for everyone else was a form of love, rather than a form of erasure. A few months after everything settled, I was talking to Fletcher again. I told him how it had all played out. The conversation on the balcony, the shift in the dynamic, the smaller, quieter equilibrium that had replaced the old one-sided arrangement. He listened through the whole thing. Then, how do you feel? I thought about it honestly. Lighter, I said. He nodded. That's what it feels like when you stop carrying things that were never yours to carry. There's a version of this story where I regret waiting so long, where I wish I'd said something earlier, where I count up all the months I spent chasing a balance that was never offered. I don't really go there. What I went through was the price of learning something slowly, and I learned it. That's enough. The last thing I'll say is this. The moment she said, "It's not that deep," that breezy, dismissive laugh, was the moment that cracked something open. Not a door, not an exit, just a window, through which I could finally see, clearly, the shape of what I'd been doing, the shape of what I'd been accepting, and what I was worth, quietly, without anyone telling me. I didn't need her to understand it. I just needed to. Some people show you who they are in a crisis. Cassie showed me who she was in the small moments, in the cancellations, in the you know how it is, in the laugh that was meant to dismiss but ended up clarifying everything. And I showed myself who I was in what I did next. Not the dramatic version, the quiet one, the one where I stopped explaining and started moving, the one where I matched the energy. Exactly. Nothing more, nothing less. And found out, finally, what was real. She said it wasn't that deep. She was right. It wasn't. Until I decided it was.